and we have got to cover a lot of distance. As far as Indian Oil is concerned, we are very much focused. We are very, very bullish on the growth trajectory of especially polyolefins, so-called the commodity plastics. In fact, we are not able to get our sight off from this particular perspective of this polyolefins. And with the kind of, the sustainability drive and the green initiative that the government is undertaking, I think another paradigm that we find is changing our preferences in energy landscape from, say, petroleum to EVs and all that, and maybe that will take some time, maybe 3 decades, 4 decades, but it has arrived. So that kind of, changing perspective has really compelled all these refinery companies, including Indian Oil, which is the energy of India, to really have a look at a different type of a building block that is oil to petrochemicals kind of a thing. Trust me, the kind of impetus Indian Oil is giving on a polyolefin capacity, it is going ahead with another 15 lakh tons in another 2-3 years' time. We have got now all refineries, mostly, not all refineries, we have got the huge 10, 11 numbers of refineries, but the refineries, we having good capacity, we are trying to augment polypropylene, homopolymer, starting from Barauni, then coming to Baroda in a very, very short period of time, 2 to 3 years' time. You will find a lot of capacities are getting added up, plus Panipat, we are adding additional capacity. So I think the commodity plastic is something which is very, very much in the minds of our company. Other than that, the specialty polymer, specialty chemical sector, that also we are finding there is little gap, which you have just now pointed out, that building blocks are there. C1 is there, C4 is there, C5 is there, C6 is there. Whereas we are working very closely on C2 and C3 in the commodity sector, these things are left out. The reason being is that, the one is that the technology is very, very expensive. And the other part is that, the kind of numbers which are coming in front of us in all this, like, say, few products like, I'll just read out few products that like pentadiene and specialty products from benzene and all that. MMA, EPDM, these products basically are finding a lot of space, but their scale is not to that extent. It is 1.2 lakh tons kind of a thing, whereas in petrochemicals we are talking of million tons, 1.2 million tons, and that kind of voracious appetite that we have. So I think gradually as we go on, we'll find that a lot of things will happen in the specialty sector also. And in that space, I would say that we cannot really look up to the Western side for the technology part, because that's something we must develop in-house. The technology part is something which I am finding is a lacking part. We have got skilled manpower, and we have to basically nurture them. We have to develop some kind of, STEM system, which is called, science, mathematics, and technology and all that, that collaboration and academia collaboration with the industry. I think that's not happening to the extent it should have happened. I think these are the things, if we work very closely on this, we'll find that some kind of technology, R&D, will definitely propel this part of coming into the specialized sector. I can also give you one example of LAB. Now, LAB is LAB is called linear alkyl benzene. This product is a commodity product and it's used in a detergent and all that. We find That LAB, we have got the capacity, normally plant size is 1.5 lakh tons kind of a thing, the size of the plant. We are finding every time this two plants are a deficit part of our LAB story. And there is not much of things are happening because obviously technology has become so expensive that, it becomes very, very difficult to really get into the, even have your, what you call, benchmark margins and all that, what you call. So those kind of things are there. I think a lot of things need to be covered. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandeep. I think you pointed out a couple of things. One was around the technology, which is limiting some of the derivatives. The other was around the scale. We may not have the scale in certain specialties. I'll take one by one. Technology, at least what we have seen in other parts of the world is, Western players collaborating with the local players to come up with the plant, right? I mean, we have seen that successfully happening in China, where even the likes of BASF, they have local partners to kind of. We haven't really seen that happening yet in India, right? I mean, there's no global MNC committing to a cracker or that scale of investment in India. And I know you were looking as an organization into specialty, acrylates and bunch of other things. Any comments on technology and how we can really solve the technology problem, either through indigenous development or what will it take to attract the global guys to come in and collaborate with the folks in India?
Yes, Sandeep. Basically, the technology which is coming from the technology licensor who are there outside the world, they are basically looking forward to have some sort of joint venture type of arrangement in India. But the Indian players, we are looking for some sort of agreement. So that is where the problem comes. And what we want to, some sort of arrangement which we would like to enter into. So there are differences on the stakeholders. So as an Indian manufacturer, I am not that comfortable on the JV front, whereas the licensor would like to work in that particular fashion. Secondly, since they are having a monopoly, so to say, in a certain sector, they are basically some sort of dictating. And in order to come out of this, I would say government has to make an intervention to start with as a short term. In a long term, we as a manufacturer has to also develop our own technology, work on our R&D, work on innovation, work on a talent nurturing. But that is the way I think we will be having some sort of independence. And let me tell you, when we got into the Kochi niche petrochemical this thing, there was one licensor, LG Petrochem. We had initially a lot of discussion with them, but at the 11th hour they backed out. And then we ourselves managed that particular plant. And today, the Kochi plant, we ourselves are managing with some sort of support from some other licensor, but he was not demanding that sort of arrangement of joint venture.
Understood. Thank you. I'll take the next one, which was around the scale, right? I mean, one of the model that has worked well is, especially if we see outside, that there are companies who will bet on the big scale investment and put crackers, but then there are different set of players who will produce these niche chemicals, and they're typically, you need to have a building block sharing between the two, because building blocks still gets controlled by the guys who are putting crackers. Again, coming back to you, Sandeep, your thoughts on, is that a model that can work in India? Why not? What are your thoughts on how we can enable some of that, so that some of the more specialty derivatives can be developed by a different set of entrepreneurs or players?
As an industry in petrochemical space, Indian Oil is definitely looking at it very closely. We are trying to have some kind of JVs, we are trying to have some kind of tie-ups with the good prospects, chemical prospects, and trying to really establish some kind of a, looking at the demand supply scenario and all that. Some products we have already identified which are very, very deficit. Isopropyl alcohol is one such. Then MDI is another for foam and all that. That industry also is growing very big. So we are trying to basically collaborate with many local industry people as well as even from outside on a small, medium and long-term perspective. Definitely they were doing, we have got in our mind this building block like benzene on toluene and all that, and we can definitely do a lot of cyclopentadiene that has got a good appetite in the market. What has happened that Indian oil all along has remained truly a refiner, and it has basically taken its roots in petrochemicals around 2005 or some around that time only. It has gone into the petrochemicals, LAB and all that. So it has been now 20 years plus. We have come into the commodities, and definitely we are very, very much focusing on the specialized product as well. We see that the kind of collaboration that we look forward, a good collaboration with Indian entities or maybe foreign, and try to see that the kind of overwhelming response that Indian oil brand gets in local market, in international market, I think we should be able to get hold of good part of it in a good times, because we are very, very bullish on this, as I told earlier also.
Thank you, Sandeep. I'll change topic a little bit. Would like to get panelist perspective on regulations. There are few things we have heard which probably are, slowing down the pace of petrochemical addition. I mean, one big thing that continues to be a barrier, especially for greenfield investment, is the pace of land acquisition. We have seen some of the examples where projects getting delayed or getting cancelled as a result of, issues with land acquisition. We have also heard, clearances can take a lot of time. Government is doing its bit. I think some of those things have improved over a decade. But would be good to hear both your perspectives on, as far as the regulatory regime is concerned, what will be welcome supporting enablers that can really help expedite, some of the development. Maybe Sandeep, if you want to start, and then we'll go to Sanjay.
See, two things are very, very important. The land acquisition from the Indian perspective, from the India as a country point of view, and environmental clearance. This is very, very challenging for any petrochemical complex that we wish to put up anywhere. And this is one thing, and the other thing is enabling environment. Why the MNCs are not coming and setting up the units here is because of, a lot of clearances are required relating to environment. A lot of disputes are there for having, you have seen the kind of, setup we have, the railway line, network, infrastructure, everywhere, a lot of huge, you have to really see a lot of issues and try to mitigate all those things, try to circumvent all those situations. So it takes time. So what has happened, that confidence of the MNCs is not to the extent it should have, and we are sitting on a very bright spot right now. When the people are trying to shift their focus from China, ultimately it's coming here. It is us as India to really grab this opportunity. But then we have to see that, the infrastructural support from government, the environmental clearances should be very, very done very expeditiously. And I can tell you one more example of PCPIR. This is a story which we have been seeing since I think 2007 or something, and it has not been taken that kind of a momentum. In the last 2 decades, we have found that, it's not really getting into the grooves. Why it is so? It is because of the state government and central government, there has not much of a hand holding. So probably more of a impetus on this. Government is trying to see, in fact in 22 they have come out with PCPI policy, where, you know, they have started giving some kind of a additional budgeting and all that for this developing this petrochemical part. And wherever our gaps are there, so they are trying to basically see that, you know, they are trying to dovetail the PCPIR in with National Infrastructure Pipeline, and it's called, I think, NIP. So to really have some kind of, you know, the inhibitions that the people are having, and some kind of fear that it's a very, very high capex project, I think government is trying to come into this and see that, you know, what best can be done.
Thank you, Sandeep. Sanjay, your perspectives?
In addition to what Sandeep has said, definitely this statutory approval, regulatory approval from the different authorities are main concern. But one more areas which I want to bring the attention of everyone is the trade and tariff. What is happening, the government of India is also parallelly signing a FTA with the different countries. And what happens when that product lands into India, it becomes really challenging for the local manufacturer to compete. There is also a product which is coming with the duty aviation, and again it is very difficult to compete, and it affects the total viability of the project. So regulatory approval is definitely area of concern, and as Sandeep said, PCPR, which was announced as way back in 2009, Dahej was, I think, the first PCPR region which was announced, and I would say out of 4 regions, that is the only one I would say is taken good shape. But when we talk about Vizag, or when we talk about, let's say, Paradip, still things have not taken the shape the way it should have been in last 10-15 years. And for petrochemical type of industry, unless you have that sort of region in place, because there are a lot of common facilities which has to be there in order to service the entire cluster. Unless until you have that sort of facility in place, it's very difficult for anyone to have a sustained production, sustained, I would say, the support from all the angle. So the idea was good of Government of India, but as Sandeep said, when there is a separate government in center and the state, sometime political instability, or I would say the different perspective from state government vis-a-vis central government is also creating some sort of gap, and that is hitting the industry. That is my way of looking at it.
Super. Thank you, Sanjay. Good. We'll change the theme a little bit. Let's talk about sustainability. I mean, it applies in different forms. When we talk about petrochemical are seen as one of the potential way to diversify, especially for oil and gas companies if the fuel demand starts going down as we go more and more towards EV. But there is also, you know, plastics is not the most friendly word when it comes to environment. Increasingly, you know, there are talks about either establishing circular economy, mechanical recycling, chemical recycling. First question to you, Sandeep. I mean, when we talk about sustainability, net zero in petrochemical context, is this something real? How fast? How one can kind of really go towards it?
Yeah, it's a very challenging situation, and we have got a big challenge. Somehow we are trying to resolve, the government is trying to really chip in with the EPR mandate, extended producer responsibility mandate, and all those kind of things. The numbers are very, very disturbing, let me tell you. The kind of, you know, plastic which has got into the landfills, in the ocean, and in all these forms, it is around mammoth 8 billion tons so far from the 1950s till now. This kind of number has emerged now. So, you know, it's really threatening. But what is happening, that plastic is being such a efficient product, such a energy efficient product, and such a user-friendly product, such a strength to weight ratio, its strength to weight ratio is remarkable. But what is happening is that probably managing the plastic, it has become something sort of a social part, which people have not been able to manage, and those trash are finding places in all these landfills and all that. Every day in entire world, every year we are adding some 1 million ton of or 8 million ton of garbage and all that in all these landfills and ocean, all this waste is happening. So in order to really address this, government is trying best to really do something. Single-use plastics boycott, they are boycotting that part, multi-layer films and all that. But once they are basically trying to give some kind of direction through EPR and all, or brand owners and other stakeholders, I think it's very straight-jacketed kind of thing, I would say. It has to be expanded. The EPR protocol must be expanded to a great extent. Like suppose we are doing suppose we are making servo bottles. What is that? The engine oil bottles and all that, blow molding containers, so-called. Now there we have got a mandate from government, okay, you do it around 20% of recyclates, add to that, okay. So sometimes recyclates itself has become, now if you see the metrics, if you see the numbers, how they are moving, the scale, the polyolefin total production in India is close to 12 million tons, okay? All producers put together. And obviously the import also is close to 3 million tons. So it comes to around 15 million tons the total demand. Out of that particular thing, what kind of recyclates that we are able to develop, it is still in its infancy state. We are doing around 50,000, we are doing around 1 lakh tons. That is hardly 0.1 million tons out of 15 million tons that we see. Whereas the mandate is to do 10 to 20%, which comes to around how much? 15 into 20%, it's around 3 lakh tons that you need to really start showing something that yes, EPR compliances are there in place. So a lot of grounds needs to be covered, and I also would say that once we are doing EPR, we must see that, the recyclates means we are trying to basically see that, your product, whatever we are doing, it is recyclable and all that. Product, you have to be able to identify. Now another parallel I am drawing with polyester, say bottle grade. Why this industry has come to a very, from unorganized part 3 decades before, now it is absolutely coming in absolutely great shape. Why? Because the bottles, they are able to add some value to that. The rag pickers are picking up the bottles. They are able to identify bottles and trying to do their business. This industry has really taken a good shape, and recycled or recyclates availability of PET is much more as compared to what you find in polyolefins. Now in polyolefin, flexible also is part, which is difficult to basically segregate and then aggregate and all those things. So I think a lot of things are happening, like, suppose HSN code is there. This is a global number which you are affixing to any PP or polythene products. That needs to be, now what they have done, they have copied in recyclate also. For PE also recyclate, they are putting the same HSN. There has to be some differentiation. HSN code for the recyclate should be different, so that you are able to have a traceability, you are able to have a total full, what you call integrated approach, and you are able to pinpoint the things. So one such answer is the traceability, and HSN code must be identified. The other thing is, suppose you are doing servo, and servo containers you are using some maybe 1,000 tons in a month. Government say, okay, to 20% you take recyclate and show me that. It should not mandate anybody to do in that particular application only. You give us, suppose you have got 1,000 tons, 20% to 200 tons you need to show. That can be shown anywhere in your application Whatever you have got in, suppose in your petrol pump, front fascia, whatever you want to do, you should be allowed to do that. Whereas it is not right now in the policy. So a lot of things needs to be done in that score.
Thank you, Sanjay. Sandeep. Sanjay, your thoughts, PPCL is putting new petrochemical complexes as we speak. How are you guys thinking about sustainability and circularity, in the context of petrochemicals as an organization?
So there are 4 areas in petrochemical industry where we can really work on thinking when we talk about the net zero. One is we can work on capturing the CO2, emitted CO2. So emitted CO2, we can use it in our other petrochemical production process. And as far as Bharat Petroleum is concerned, I can tell you, when we commissioned the PDPP plant, that is niche petrochemical plant in Kochi, we have got a petcoke unit also there in Kochi. So we have used the syngas from that unit, and which is one of the input for our oxo-alcohol unit. So this is one live example which we have got. Going forward, when we talk about the ethylene and propylene PP derivatives in Bina, which we have thought of, we also got a plan of having a CO2 recovery unit over there, which will take care of the emission which is there. And these thing can be used for the production of the ethylene oxide as well as MEG. That sort of plan we have got. So one is the direct capturing of the carbon. This is one area. Secondly, the technology selection itself is a very, very important aspect which we as a petrochemical manufacturer need to be mindful of, so that when we are having a target of having a net zero, we need to also select a technology which will be low emission, carbon emission technology we have to use. Then while doing the operation also, we can do a lot of things. We can optimize our operation itself by using the some sort of advanced analytics, which will help us in reducing the, having a reduction in the shutdowns, having operation efficiencies. So all this technology, we can use it wherein if I am able to reduce my production, I would say the shutdown, obviously it has got an impact on the carbon emission. Third and most important is how do I source the energy itself for when I talk about the petrochemical plant. So while designing the plant, if we can take care of some sort of energy which is a green energy, whether it is in terms of the use of green hydrogen, it could be the use of the solar energy, or some sort of the biomass. So these are the 3 avenues which are available to us. When we design our plant, we can also take into account the use of such a green power. The fourth part, which I think Mr. Sandeep has mentioned about the circularity. We are making a lot of these petrochemicals. So we have to be mindful when we work on the 4th pillar, that is circular economy. We have to design a product in such a way that that product is getting recycled, reused, so that we really don't waste and don't add it to the problem again. So these are the 4 areas which I feel while designing the petrochemical plant itself, we need to be mindful of these 4 areas.
Thank you, Sanjay. That's very useful. Sandeep, last question to you around circularity. If you can shed some light on what are the initiatives as an organization you guys are taking across different modes of sustainability. That would be very useful.
I think as a very major producer of petrochemicals, Indian Oil has got a lot of responsibilities on this management of waste part. And we are also getting into very closely into this recyclates. And this year we have got some mandate to tie up the quantities with some prospective converters who can give us some material, and then we supply to our customers, because once Indian Oil has got its role to play with recyclates, I think there is a lot of credibility which will add to the entire scheme of things. All the MNCs look forward to have this kind of solution from the industry, and we are taking steps into that in order to really supply those numbers to such MNCs who would like to have this kind of a comfort from very credible source that recyclate should come from. Because we'll add a lot of attributes to that. We'll check the efficacy of that product. We'll check the technical part of that product. We'll check what kind of traceability is there, what kind of lineage, product lineage is there, what kind of parameters it is, what is the MFI, what is the density, all those things, color, what is the smell part, odor, organoleptic characteristics and all that. So all those things we'll very critically measure and we'll try to see. So that part we are come very close. We have got some numbers which we will roll out in 23-24, and then we'll see how the industry is able to move forward in this. So this is a big responsibility on Indian Oil, and we are very much aware of it. And we are also trying to see that, collection, segregation, aggregation, cleaning, all these things, if we are very much, depending on the third party supplier, it becomes very, very difficult to basically monitor the quality parameter. And that is why maybe we are very, very seriously contemplating to have our own, some kind of, we are exploring that option also, that why not we also get into this full time. Let us see, everything is very fluid right now, but we are very much into that direction. Yeah.
Got it. Sanjay, Sandeep, thanks a lot for your views on variety of topics. I'll just quickly summarize the discussion for everyone's benefit. I think overall what the view we have heard is, yes, the growth will continue. I think the base load will still tend to be the commodity petrochemicals, where we still require quite a bit of those going forward. But specialty is something, that we'll start seeing a pivot towards going forward. I think couple of very interesting points. I think scale in specialty still remains a challenge. So that's something we'll have to kind of address, either through building block sharing or through some kind of JVs. Regulations, interesting point. I think things have improved, but there's a lot that still remains to be done. I think one of the key point that emerges, the central policy is getting implemented at a state level and the coordination required to make that happen. That stands out as something very, very important. Sustainability, two parts. A, building the sustainability from the design itself, especially when we are talking about greenfield projects. And B, increasingly focusing on the circular aspects, be it through EPR mandates and some of these other things. With that, let me close this conversation and, thanks a lot for your attention.